Hello, this is Frank of the 12 Gates. Another, I think, reasonably depressing video, this one. But the title of this video is, Will Preppers Survive What is Mentioned in Revelation Bible Prophecy? I'm just fascinated with these people, I've got a lot of respect for them, As I said, that John of Prepared Mind, you've got that, I don't know what his name is, the Canadian prepper. I don't think he mentions his name, he just says Canadian prepper out at the end. Yeah, these are highly intelligent people. They're rational people that realise that they're not conspiracy theorists, but they know, they can see that something's going on in the world, whether it's the governments or whether it's just a natural course of events. At the end of the day, these preppers, as much as respect I have for them, if you actually showed them the book of Revelation and sat down and just read it to them, they just look at you and think, yeah, but that's just the Bible, isn't it? They don't believe in God. Some do, as I showed you in one of the videos. They're around the table, they're praying, saying grace, wherever it is. So I would assume they're Christians. They're a Christian community there. And I strongly suggest you get yourself in that situation. I see it with a lot of the people that have left the institutional church. There's quite a few people on there, they have left and they started their own church, as in the book of Acts. Maybe just a half a dozen people, maybe a dozen, that sort of thing. Acts 2:44, isn't it? They were together and had everything in common. Yeah, where two or three or more are gathered in my name, I will be there also. Yeah, and I think we're going to be heading towards those times. I did make a video on this about, I think, hermits and the last days or something like that. And I did say in that video, I did go on about this Agathia, yeah, and she's living out in the wilderness, and she's just cut herself off from society because she went through a similar situation. She's one of the old believers of the church that she belongs to. She was a Orthodox, Orthodox Catholic, the old school. Some say the original, but. And there's a lot of stuff that they do that was banned by the modern day version. They were getting rid of these people. Either you had to come in, or these people fled, and they just fled into the wilderness. And she's one of the surviving ones. I think she's in her 70s now. I'm not sure she's still alive, and I did a video on that, and it's very relevant. I think she's like a prepper, isn't she? There's a lot of similarities, but she is guided by the Lord, and the Lord provides. She has to work her butt off daily, but she's surviving on her own there. She gets supplies sometimes, comes through, but she can survive on her own. Yeah, but that's the way I think things will be heading, and you have to start getting that mindset. Hopefully this pandemic blows over, there is no climate crisis, nothing else happens, and everything returns back to normal. And we'll look back on this time and think, well, Frank's going on about, change your mindset, this, that, and the other, thing's back to normal. But I can't see it. I can't see it at all. I think, we're not going back to what we originally know as normal. I said we got a third wave in France, Poland. But I digress. Getting back to that John of Prepared Minds, the prepared mind. I keep coming back to this guy. But you watch that video, preppers will be hunted by the hordes when, SHTF happens. You watch that video, it's quite haunting, and he doesn't look like somebody that's easily scared, and he looks terrified. Yeah. And it's quite obvious he doesn't believe in God. Or maybe he does believe in God. There's people that believe in God, isn't there? But he doesn't believe in Jesus, and he certainly doesn't believe in the gospel. And he's not a believer. He's not in the faith. He has to rely on himself. And most of these preppers are the same. Yeah. If you want anything done, you have to do it yourself. They don't even rely on the governments. If things go belly up, they know what will happen. The government will lose control. They'll just run off and go into the mountains, as is mentioned in Revelation. Which brings us nicely onto Revelation. This is what this video is all about. I'm just going to do a few verses. If we look at, say, Wormwood comes down, isn't it? There's some mention of some asteroids somewhere, isn't it? Is it Wormwood the one? You know, if this thing, like Armageddon, if this thing hits the Earth, there's two options, isn't it? It's either going to hit the land or it's going to hit the sea. If it hits the sea, we're going to see tsunamis the likes of we haven't seen for ages. Yeah, they could be 1,000 foot high, maybe higher than that. And it'd be around the globe, this sort of thing. You know, depending on where it lands. You know, that's the first thing. So we're looking at extreme flooding, areas where it hasn't landed, say the other side of the planet, the sea levels will rise significantly, flooding off. You know, that's what will happen there. If it hits land, then, you know, at least with the sea, it absorbs the impact, I suppose. But with it hits land, that's going to cause earthquakes. Probably over half the planet. At least, like it says in Revelation, a quarter. Yeah. It will send us a dust cloud up so bad it will blot out probably half the planet's sky. A bit like that Mount St. Helens. Remember when that erupted? It'd be worse than that. Yeah. It could cause all sorts of things. It could cause severe climate change in a very short period of time, you know. Yeah, blocking out the sun, yeah, which would affect crops, life on here as we know it. It could affect the water supply. Just read Revelation, isn't it? How do you prepare for something like that? You know, just make sure, you know, you think, well, I'll just go to a tropical island. And that's it. Well, what happens if this thing lands in the sea and you're on a tropical island? That's the first place to get wiped out, isn't it? Go on high ground. When you go on high ground, you know, this thing, if it lands on the land, there's going to be earthquakes. You know, it's... The question is, you've got to ask yourself, is it worth living in that sort of time? Do you want to be alive? I will be like the ones in that film. It was a father and daughter. I think it's father and daughter, isn't it? They're standing. They know what's coming. And they're just standing on the beach and they're hugging each other. They're absolutely terrified. And they see the water go out, the tide go out at a rapid rate of knots. And then suddenly they hear this thing coming. It sounds like an express train. And they just see it and they just close their eyes and boom, that's it. They're finished. Curtains. Yeah. Yeah. If you get into the vials, there's the noisome sores. The people that took the mark, they will be covered in these noisome sores. And that's why I'm fascinated with these preppers, because they're not going to take the mark. So what's going to happen to these people? They're going to be scorched with fire, tormented with fire and brimstone. These people, you know, burned, like is mentioned in Matthew 13, isn't it? The tares and the wheat. They're going to be burned and tormented. Yeah. How do you prepare for that? There's going to be this great heat on this planet. You know, there's going to be the water supplies. I've seen pictures of this in one video. It was so horrific. You see, you know, when it dries out, it cracks, doesn't it? Especially clay and stuff like that. You get these cracks and you get this sort of hairline cracks in the ground. Yeah. Well, these won't be hairline cracks. These cracks will probably be about 10 foot wide and about 200 foot deep. That's what the planet will look like. It'll be something like Mars, something like that. It'll be 50, 60 degrees, something like that down here, maybe more. Yeah. Just enough so you can survive. A human being probably just about survive in that. But all the trees will wither up, the water sources will dry up, the seas will start drying and receding. You know, you just be crawling around on all fours, drilling down, trying to get water, you know. Just trying to survive. There'd be no shelter, nowhere to go. You'd have to live underground. How do you prepare for that? You know. And that's what I'm saying. I don't think these preppers are really aware of what Revelation, what's going to happen. They're not aware at all. And at the end of the day, anybody that takes the mark, they get killed in the Battle of Armageddon, don't they? It's mentioned, I did put the verse up in the previous video. The remnants, the false prophet, and the beast are sealed in the bottomless pit. Yeah. And the remnants of the people that have the mark, that form this army, that fight against Jesus and his army, they're going to be killed with the sword. Yeah. They're killed. It's as simple as that. But this is where I keep focusing on these preppers, because these people, they won't take the mark. If they bug in, which is, they'll stay in the cities and they'll just fight these marauders off and the hordes. They're just going to bug down, bug in, make their house bulletproof. And people say, well, they may get burnt out. They may just burn them out, Yes or no? That's what that John says. We don't know. But you're going to have desperate people in these times. They're going to be absolutely starved. They're hungry. They're going to form groups. They're going to be organised. They're going to go banging from door to door, as this John said. These are the bug-in types. Eventually, the authorities, they will come around in the early days to see preppers and say, look, you've got all this food here. We need to take most of it. We'll leave enough here for you to survive a week. And then what happens is we can redistribute it amongst other people. So they say, isn't it? That may be happening. And then you're going to get people that are banging on your door. They're going to be begging. And after a while, people are going to realise that house there, he's got a gold mine of medical supplies and food and all the rest of it. But these people won't take the mark. No, if the mark comes along, they don't want it. No, not because of their faith, but because they don't need it, because they're self-sufficient. They don't want to rely on the authorities, because they don't trust them. So what happens? These people, if they are in Revelation, they are mentioned in Revelation that people that take the mark will be killed. And people that don't take the mark are killed as well, which is us. But what about these people that don't take the mark and they don't believe in Jesus? That would be the preppers, isn't it? They may not even believe in God. These are the ones that are cold. They're cold in the faith, isn't it? Yeah. They're not lukewarm, are they? Lukewarms are the pre-tribbers. These are the people that hopefully they think they're going to get out and we're not going to be down here. These are the ones that probably will take the mark, as I mentioned in the previous video. I think they will. And you're going to have a strange collection of people out there, as I mentioned, probably 5 groups. The lukewarms, pre-tribbers. You're going to have believers, your hardcore believers. You're going to have the world, or the hordes, and their numbers will be dropping on a daily basis, rapidly, And then you'll have the preppers, and then you'll have the authorities, people in authority, people in charge, government officials, the military, police, this sort of thing, isn't it? Those types. That's basically the people that are going to be out there. As I said, pre-tribbers will eventually, they'll just succumb and take the mark. They may even be fooled. This AC may appear to them to be Jesus, and they think, oh, well, yeah, we'll take it. We're going to get raptured out anyway, But I think when things get so bad, they realise there is no rapture, and they'll just take the mark, I think. Yeah, they'll bottle out. And it's only the hardcore that will know they're going to be beheaded, or they're going to be killed for not taking the mark, and that's it. Well, they're martyred, aren't they? That's the thing. That's the way you got to look at it, isn't it? You're going to be martyred, and you'll either end up in the millennial kingdom, or you will end up in the clouds, martyred. These are those that came out of great tribulation, isn't it? Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. When I look at the pre-tribulation, that is like the beginnings of sorrows. It sounds bad, but it's nothing compared to the great tribulation, which is the last 3.5 years, if you believe this Daniel, the last week of Daniel, the 7 days, which is 7 years, split into 3.5 years of pre-tribulation or beginning of sorrows, and then 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. If you believe that. I believe that. There's mention of 42 months, something about do not measure the outside of the temple. It will be trod down by the Gentiles for 42 months or something like that. So that period is mentioned. What Daniel talked about, this 42-month period where this beast will reign. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. There's a lot of similarities between preppers and us, and there's a lot of differences, But I think the conclusion I've come to, and I only had this thought today, that eventually I don't think preppers will be in cities. They're not going to survive. You can't hold off these people. There will be people that will just form gangs and they'll just stay in the cities. They'll cling on to the remnants of whatever society that was there. Maybe form some alternative society. You can't live amongst these hordes. Out in the sticks, it's going to be harder to survive. You're going to have to grow and farm and that sort of thing and form fairly reasonable sized communities. You're talking about 50 people plus. Something that is able to defend itself. But getting back onto Goshen, I think if we're going to be heading that way, I think that's what's going to happen. I mean, eventually we will be killed, people. You just have to accept that. But we will be out in the sticks, which is where I live now, within range of the city maybe. But it doesn't matter how far you go. These people just keep wandering and wandering and wandering. It doesn't matter, especially in this country. The more further away you get away from civilization, if things do return back, the power goes back on, the water goes back on, the civilization sort of returns, you're too far away, aren't you? But by then, if you would have adapted to the new way of living, and if you're in a community, you can survive that way. But I think preppers eventually, most of them will die out. A lot of these hordes, they won't survive. If the preppers die out, they've got nothing to live off, have they? Eventually these people will have to form communities themselves, and they realise that believers like ourselves will form communities, and that's how you're going to have to live. Different skill sets brought together. Acts 2:44, isn't it? The difference being we will still we believe in Jesus, isn't it? That's the thing to pull us through. But just some deep thoughts, people. How I think it's going. I could be completely wrong here. This pandemic will just fizzle out and everything returns back to normal, and I'll probably look like a complete idiot, But I think it's a good idea to have that prepared mindset at the back of your head. I think that's important. Yeah. Because if we are suddenly launched, it can happen at a frightening rate, as we saw in this country. 1 minute the supermarkets are normal, the next minute, within days, we're talking people queuing outside supermarkets. And it was quite civilized. People are queuing up, but hundreds of people with trolleys at 4 a.m. standing outside supermarkets. What's to say that's not going to happen again? And this time, instead of standing outside the supermarket, they're waiting for the lorries to turn up to do the deliveries, and they start attacking the lorry drivers and get the stuff off the lorry. You know what I mean? That's the thing, isn't it? It's very easy to flick from civilization and order to anarchy, isn't it? It doesn't take long. We're talking days, really. Yeah. And as I say, that John of the Prepared Minds, he's realised 4 years ago that he's probably got everything. He's prepared, he's got a bug out location, he's staying away from the cities, he's got all the food, water, medical supplies, he's got everything. He's ready for whatever's coming. But he realises he can't fight off the hordes. The only way you can fight off the hordes is by having, sort of 50 to 100 people yourself, but then they just gather in larger numbers. They just, if you've got 100, they'll come back with 1,000. That's the thing. But that's no way to live, is it? And I think that John of Prepared Mind, he realised that you can't carry on living like that. Eventually you will be killed. Those who live by the sword will die by the sword, as is mentioned in the Bible, isn't it? How we're going to survive, I don't know. But like I said, you're just going to have to let the Lord guide you. And I will do a video on, whether we should prepare. But all I've got to say on the matter is, Goshen, I'm hopeful that we will find some sort of Goshen somewhere. I don't know. But I don't think it's in the cities. We'll be getting out of the cities. And people will be taking the mark, as mentioned in Revelation. The mark will be useless outside of the cities. It's going to be a digital, electronic thing, isn't it? But before that can happen, there has to be some sort of chaos, some sort of moment where society collapses and this new society emerges, isn't it? Yeah, and maybe we're going through that at the moment, I don't know. Anyway, this is Frank with the 12 Gates. A longer video than normal, but I suggest you start thinking the way I'm thinking, and that is, have a prepared mind. Even if it's just mentally. You've got no food and you've got no water. Just get yourself prepared for the possibility that things may go belly up this autumn. I don't think this summer we should be okay. The virus doesn't seem to do so well at that time, but maybe something new will crop up. We don't know. But certainly, if we are in those times, then you need to have that at the back of your mind. If we are in those times, then certainly there needs to be more, not the back of your mind, the front of your mind. Yeah, the rule of three. Look at one of my previous videos. I'm not going to repeat it. Yeah, the rule of three, I think, is very important. Prepare around that. At least have some sort of basics, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, this is Frank with the 12 Gates. I've been rambling on long enough here. Peace, love and joy. Bit depressing this video, but it had to be done. And just remember that if you are in the faith, we will, if we die, then we will overcome death and live everlasting life, isn't it? That's it. That's what we believe in. These preppers, that's the difference between them and us. They don't believe anything, do they? They just believe in themselves, and they'll just fight tooth and nail to stay alive. But eventually they know they will be killed off. They're just prolonging the inevitable. And when they die, where are they going? They're going the same way as where the hordes will be going, the world, the officials, everybody, they'll all be going the same place, isn't it? Whereas we will have everlasting life. That's what we believe in. Yeah. Anyway, catch you in the next video. And keep your eyes on the proper news sources. Make sure you're not watching this junk out there. Auntie Ethel's Facebook page. No disrespect to any Auntie Ethels out there. And the next video, I'll probably be looking at preppers again. But I think, we realise that if preppers actually read the book of Revelation, and if they sort of half understood it, they realise that what they're doing is just a complete waste of time, isn't it? But, at the end of the day, it's better to do that. I have more respect for these people than these pre-tribbers that are just sitting there doing nothing because they think they're going to be raptured out. And it's pretty obvious in the scripture that, one, we're still down here, and two, there is no rapture. There's no confirmatory verses outside of Paul that confirm this thing is happening, isn't it? 2.2 billion plus the dead will be raised first. There's nothing there, is there? And these people will be freaking out. Anyway, catch you in the next video, people. Hopefully.